Hi, this is Marty from Blue Lightning TV. I'm glad you could join me today. This is my third live stream, and I'm really excited that you could join me. The last two was fantastic. The questions you asked, it was just a lot of fun for me, and I really appreciate it. So, so today we're going to jump into a tutorial on how to create a blueprint. And this is a fun assignment. I did this a couple of times before on earlier versions of Photoshop. You might have done it, but in this case, we're going to take a photo and essentially make it look like a blueprint. And the good thing about this that my other tutorials didn't do is you could replace the photo with another without having to redo the effects, which is a lot of fun. Let's get to the chats. Wow. Okay. Or Brenna says, hi, thank you for everything. Croatia, Iva 169 from Croatia. How you doing? The Gaming Army, howdy. Abhishek Saxena says, hi from India. Hello. This is really great. I slowed down I believe I have a slow mode for messages today. I think it's like every 10 seconds people can type in a message, because the last two live streams, it was just like water. You know, the messages were coming down really fast and furious. So I kind of slowed it down to every 10 seconds. So Gabriel Martinez, hello from Sweden. So yeah, just ask questions, and I'll be doing the tutorials, and I'll stop every now and then and refer to these great chats. Tejo Cohen from Belgium. Greetings right back at you. Okay, so let's get into this. So the first thing that we're going to do is you find an architectural photo, like a building. It could be a city building. Exteriors, I think, work really well. Interiors could work too. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to convert it into a smart object, so we can modify the filters that we'll be adding to it at any time, and it'll also allow us to replace it without having to redo the effects, as I mentioned before. So we go to this little icon in the corner and click Convert to Smart Object. Now you know it's a smart object because there's a little icon down here in the lower right corner of the thumbnail. So that's how you know it's a smart object. So any effects that we add to this will become automatically, by default, they'll become smart filters. And smart filters can be adjusted anytime you want. That's what's so great about smart objects. So from here, what we're going to do is change the size and resolution to a specific dimensions, because in order for you to get your results to look similar to mine, you should match the same dimensions that I'm using and the resolution that I'm using. So to do that, you go to Image and Image Size, okay? And what you do is the resolution should be 150 pixels per inch, and the height 1,000 pixels. The width can be any amount. It doesn't really matter. As long as this link, this chain link is checked, when you change the width or the height, the other will follow. So the aspect ratio, the shape of your image, will remain the same. It won't be stretched out or squeezed. And then you click OK. Now to fit it back onto your screen, you press Control or Command 0. Now I'm going to reduce it a little bit So we could, not so cramped in there. Let me go back to the chats. It says, Mayan says, can you do a typography tutorial where we stretch words to fit inside a picture? Yeah, I mean, I've done many of those tutorials. You do that with a transform tool, basically, and it's Control or Command T, and you basically can stretch the sides, and you use a layer mask to confine the image into the layer below it. So a layer mask is like a stencil. White reveals and black will mask out, and it masks out everything outside the layer mask. But I've done those. Just go to my channel, and whenever you want to get into a particular subject, like find a particular subject on my tutorials, you can go to my YouTube channel, and there's a magnifying glass icon. To the right of the magnifying glass icon, there's a field that you can type in information. So just type in the subject. In your case, just type in layer mask, and tons will come up. I mean, hundreds. So yeah. Let's see. Abhishek Saxena, I have learned to create several types of photos from the Photoshop by watching your videos. Watching videos of yours, sir. You are my teacher. I respect you very much and will always thank you. Thanks very much. That's a really kind comment. I appreciate that. Amit Wretches, excuse me if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly. It says, how would you turn day to night? I've done a few tutorials showing how to do that. Just go to my channel, type in day to night, and you'll see how it's done. And you could add a moon to it, an aurora borealis. I mean, you can do all sorts of things, which I've done in the tutorials. Shavru Deb says, hi from Bangladesh. How you doing? Monty Tube says, hi from Sudan. Hi, Monty. Guomenta Reviews says, hi from Finland, and thank you, Marty. I have learned so much from your videos. I'm really happy. I mean, that's the whole point of doing these for myself. I do this for you guys, but I really do it for myself because it makes me feel good that I'm helping you guys, learn something and learn Photoshop. So what I try to do is I try to show you how to use Photoshop by doing projects. Essentially, my tutorials are project oriented. So I say, this is what we're going to create, just like in this blueprint. I say, this is what we're going to create, and let's do it. And this way it gives you an incentive to learn while you're doing it. And that's my method, my ways of teaching. Okay, so from here, now that we have the smart object in place, the height and resolution are set to specific sizes. What we can do from here is we're going to, we're going to add usually in blueprints there's a little area that architects put in the name of the owner of the residence and the location where the building of the blueprint is located. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on the new layer icon, okay, and create a rectangular white shape where we can, inside of the white shape, we'll type in all that information. So I'm going to find the area that I think would work the best. And in this case, it'll be the lower right corner. So I'll click on the rectangular marquee tool, go to the corner, and I'll drag out a rectangle about this much or so, okay? Now, this is a selection for novices and beginners. If you don't know what this basically is a selection. Inside the selection, we're going to fill it with white. So there's a few ways of doing it. You could press Shift plus the F5 key and click white, or you can go to the foreground and background colors. Now the default foreground and background colors are black and white. Now you can either click this little icon here or press D on your keyboard, and it turns to black and white. White is the background color, so I'm going to fill the selection with white by pressing Control or Command plus Delete. Whoop. Okay. And you deselect it by pressing Control or Command D. So now from here, we're going to make this visible image into a smart object by shift-clicking the bottom layer, which highlights that layer as well, and clicking Convert to Smart Object. Okay, so now we have one layer as a smart object. Let's go back to the chats. King's Jindu says, the one and only Marty. That's me. For better or for worse. Samuel Taddy says, hi Marty, can you do a tutorial how to edit a video inside Photoshop? Well, you'd have to use the animation feature. You'd have to use the animation feature in Photoshop to edit a video. You can place a video inside. You can do that, but frankly, programs like After Effects would be better to do that with, or iMovie. Something that a program that essentially embraces video a lot more than Photoshop does. Photoshop is mainly for static images. I mean, you could do GIFs, GIF animations, or a lot of people call them GIFs, but the correct pronunciation actually is GIF, according to the creator of it. But you can do it. But I would, I've done some tutorials showing how to use the animation feature, so you might want to check that out. I can't pronounce this name. It's in, I think, Korean. It says, Marty, I found out about this channel through Wikipedia, but I forgot where I read it on there. Okay. Six Killa says, hi from Macedonia. Good work, sir. Thanks, Six. So, Brick Move says, I really like your voice. It might be an acquired taste. Some people, most people like it, but when I do my tutorials, I tend to speak I slow down my speech. I try to pronounce words clearly. And the reason I do that, I sound kind of robotic when I do my tutorials in a way, or sort of like a 1950s or 60s announcer that you'd see on some student films, shown in your classroom. A lot of people don't speak English as their first language, and also, so it would be easier to understand me. And the other thing is that, many of my viewers are beginners or novices at Photoshop, and I want to make sure that I don't go too fast. My earlier tutorials went way too fast, and I've learned to slow them down, because basically you couldn't keep up. You couldn't really follow the steps. They were just going by way too quickly. So, but this is my normal voice. It says, Scorpion the Gamer says, I will be honest, you helped me a lot with Photoshop. Thanks a lot, sir. I have liked most of your videos. Oh, I have most of your videos in my hard disk. Well, that's cool. Tom Shaw says, hello from Dallas. I love Dallas. I was there, and I stayed at this really nice hotel. It was kind of shaped like almost like not quite a pyramid, but it was like flat on top, but it was like at an angle going up. The Anatole? Does that make sense? It was many years ago. They were having a beach party in the center of town. The whole town was having a beach party. They threw in sand and beach balls and a volleyball net, and obviously because Dallas is landlocked, so it must have been a lot. It was a lot of. It looked like a lot of fun. Karaus Miller says, hey, I use GIMP for a lot of my projects. However, I'm limited to only certain formats. I've never used Photoshop before. How is it in comparison to GIMP? Karaus, I've never used GIMP, so I really can't comment on that. I haven't used Photoshop Elements nor GIMP, so I can't really help you. Royal Wrestling says, hi from the Netherlands. Ariane7SSR says, hello from France. Marty, it's so true that it's harder to listen to a tutorial when it's spoken in a foreign language, but you speak very clearly. Well, thanks. Also, keep in mind, for the last few years, I have closed captioning. In other words, if you click, there's a CC at the bottom of every tutorial. If you click on the CC and choose your language, Google automatically translates my English captions to your language, to your native language. They're not perfect. The translations aren't perfect, but most of it is understandable. I would say a great deal of it is understandable. You could figure it out. So just keep that in mind. If you can click on the CC and you could use that. Yeah, I make sure to essentially go over what I have as a voiceover and make sure it's being translated by Google to begin with correctly, so you guys can translate it into your language. E.M. Strelovich says, hi, I'm only 15 years old and I've already designed a professional book cover for an author and hundreds of logos for companies. Everything I've learned from Photoshop is from you. Thank you so much. That makes me feel really great. Liam, I'm really happy for you. 15 years old, you're going to be a major force in graphic design when you're older. I guarantee you. And I'm glad I could be a little ripple in your pond. Dr. Redkey says, I love your videos, your voice, and your channel. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Somebody mentions, can you do a tutorial in Design and convert it into Office Word? I really don't use InDesign, frankly. So I can't help you with that. Valentine84 says, I'm French. Do you like France? I love France. I was in France 2 years ago. I was in Italy and France. Went to Paris. Paris is probably one of the most beautiful cities I've ever been to in my life. It is just exquisite, and it's so cultural, and it just everywhere you look in Paris anyway, it's like a postcard. It's just gorgeous. I love the French culture, and so yeah. Okay. Okay, so from here, let's see. All right, so we have this. And the next thing we're going to do is we made that into a smart. I'm just referring to my notes, by the way. I wrote down notes here. This is like layers, the bottom layer all the way to the top, and I number them. That's how I mainly do my tutorials. I know it looks, like scribble, but I could read my own handwriting most of the time anyway. And so I'm just going over what I wrote down. Just to economize. I like to get right to it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to a filter called Find Edges. You'll see what that does. So we're going to go into Filter, Stylize, and Find Edges. Okay, now that kind of creates the general line drawing, the line effect that we're going to ultimately colorize and do some other things too. Now, if you notice over here, it says Find Edges down here. This is what's called a smart filter. I don't know if you can read this. It's really small. Smart filters, it says. And this is Find Edges. Now, if I turn it on and off, you can see, that you can, if you don't want to use it at any point, you can. In this case, you definitely want to use it. But, so from here, we're going to add a stroke or a border. And we're going to add basically a border around the entire blueprint, because it never goes all the way to the edges. The actual drawing. There's always like a border. So to do that, we're going to go to FX, Stroke. Okay. Now the stroke is going to be white. The size I'm going to choose for this will be, I guess, 25 pixels. Whatever size the stroke is, we're going to add one more filter to it, and that other filter is going to be 1 pixel greater than what the stroke is. So in this case, it's 25 pixels. The position is inside. The blend mode is normal. The opacity is 100%. So next I'm going to go to Inner Glow. The Inner Glow is black. Okay. The source is edge, and the choke is 100%, and the size is 1 pixel greater than the stroke, 26 pixels. Remember, the stroke is 25 pixels. Okay, I'm going to click OK. So that created a nice border with a ruled line around it that looks great for blueprints. I'm not an architect, but it's kind of I don't know if there's actually a line in a blueprint, but I like the look. Artistic license. You could always take it out if you want, by just unclicking, Inner Glow. Okay. Mr. South Swag says, "You are my sports fan, Marty. I do some cool sports designs, and they are really nice. If you're a sports fan, what sports and teams do you like?" I like. There's a New York team called the Mets, and I've always liked the Mets. They'll break your heart almost every year. They've only had two real. Well, I shouldn't say that. They won the World Series in '80. Oh God, sorry, Mets fans. '83, I think. And in the '60s they won too. But I haven't really followed the Mets in a long time. Yeah, baseball, but other than that, I like tennis. I'm not a super, I like to watch the championship games in football, American football, baseball mainly. My answer is, you said your videos are mostly projects you do. How do you choose your projects, and how do you visualize an effect? Can any picture be used to bring out any effect? So how do I choose my projects? I mentioned this in my second live stream, maybe even my first live stream. What I do is ideas for projects come from many sources, and sometimes, and they come from places that I wouldn't normally think they would come from. If I'm on, if I happen to be walking down the street and I see a crack in a sidewalk, that might give me an idea for something. Or if I see, I don't know, the way sunlight filters through trees, and I want to create these sun rays, and how to replicate. What I do is I try to replicate natural phenomenon in the best way I can. I also like to do designs, graphic design in Photoshop. So I love doing posters or record album covers. I love effecting photographs, especially faces. So whether you can make a face into a cartoon, or just make a face look like a pencil sketch, or a pop art poster. I mean, things that interest me. I love typography in general, but ideas, I mean, they're all around. And if I see something that just sparks my interest, I just go with it. And oftentimes when I'm working in Photoshop, it veers off onto other ideas. So it's just a lot of experimentation, basically. But there's just ideas are all around us. It's just a matter of picking and choosing what I want to do, and then I do it. The Mashup World says, hello from Serbia. What do you do for a living? I'm presently retired. Okay, I worked for NBC television for 35 years, and I worked on a variety of television shows. The longest show I've worked for was Late Night with Conan O'Brien, who still has it. He actually has a show on TBS in LA, and so I worked on that show for 15 years. And prior to that, I worked on news and different shows. But I retired 7 years ago. And I basically do this full time. It's sort of like a hobby that became a full-time thing because I enjoy it so much. It's a full-time thing. And it really provides three things for me. It's a great creative outlet. So, my professional career was graphic artist. I was basically graphic artist, art director, animator, illustrator, but basically graphic arts. And this allows me, doing Photoshop tutorials allows me to be creative with it. The second thing it does is I'm helping people learn Photoshop, and it does create a revenue stream for me as well, because my tutorials on YouTube, they basically, it's when they put banners or ads in the beginning of a tutorial or the middle of a tutorial, it generates a fraction of a cent for me, but they add up. So it's a nice little revenue stream for me as well. But that's what I do for a living. I don't have to do it, but I don't have to do this, but I enjoy doing it. And frankly, I don't know what I'd do if it wasn't doing Photoshop tutorials. I might be into sculpting or painting. I don't know, but it would have to be something creative. Again, some Austin Allen says, "Can we use these tutorials in GIMP?" I don't. I've never used GIMP, so I'm sorry to say I can't answer that question. Okay, so from here, now that we have the edges, what we're going to do is, okay, so we're going to take all the color out of this image, and by doing that, we're going to click the adjustment layer icon and click black white, and that removes all the color. Okay, from here we're now let's see, do I want to add a, well, okay, let's add the text. Let's add some text. So we're going to click the horizontal type tool, and for the font we're going to pick Draftsman. Okay, now the other Blueprint tutorials I've done has a link. As a matter of fact, I'll put the link for you at the end of this live stream. I'll add the link for Draftsman in the video's description, which is going to be below the title of the video of this live stream. And I'm going to choose, say, 16 points for this. You can always change it later. Sharp is the aliasing, and center alignment, and the color is black. So I'm going to click down here, okay, and I'm going to type in the Joneses residence, okay, and I'm going to click my move tool and move it. Okay, now below it I'm going to put the address. So I'm going to open up the type tool again, click below the name, and I'm going to lower the point size to say 14 points. And I'm going to type in 38 Port Drive, Santa Barbara. Little typo there, Santa Barbara. CA for California. Okay, go back to my move tool. Now, if it's too big, and it is too big, I'm going to double click on the large T of this text layer, and I'm going to lower it to say 12 points. And that automatically lowers it. I'll open my move tool and move it. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to add a paper texture that will give us kind of that like blueprint effect, the texture effect that you see. Mustafa Khan says, "Hello, sir. I am from India." Hi, Mustafa. And Mawi says, "I am from India too." I have a lot of, I see the Ashish 999 India. You've got the Om Shanti logo for your icon. I was into yoga in my 20s, Hatha yoga, exercise, and the whole Bhagavad Gita, and it was very fascinating. It's just amazing stuff. Nars from Brazil. How you doing, Nars? Okay, so the texture. So I have a paper texture, and again, I'll put the link so you can download this if you want to. I'll place the link in the video's description. To get the paper into your other document, you just make sure your move tool is open, and I'm going to drag it onto the tab of the blueprint, drag it down, and I pressed shift while I dragged it down. And what that did was that kind of centered it over the image. Now I'm going to press Control or Command T, which is the transform tool. I'm going to go to a corner, and there's a diagonal double arrow. I'm going to press Alt or Option plus Shift and drag it in, drag it down, a little outside the document, and then press Enter or Return. Okay? I'm going to change the blend mode to linear burn. Now you can see the before and after. It kind of creates that blueprinty look to it. Try Be Crucial says, from California, I'm only 15 and enjoy watching your videos. That's great. I'm happy that you're watching my videos and enjoying them. J.R. Magrillis says, Brazil here, we used to play soccer. Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, we call soccer here. I know you guys call it football, but as you know, we call the different game that we have called football. It's, you know, but you guys call football what we call soccer. So, okay, so from here we're going to make the entire image blue. That will really give it that blueprint look, hence the name. So we're going to create a new layer, okay, and we're going to fill it with blue. Now again, so in this case I'll click on the foreground color, which is the fastest way of doing this, and I already know the color I want. This is called the hexadecimal field. If I type in numbers and letters, they correspond to certain colors. In this case, I'm typing in 0036A5. And then I'll click OK. To fill the empty layer with this color, I will press Alt or Option plus Delete, which fills the layer with the foreground color. Alt or Option plus Delete. And I'm going to change the blend mode to screen. Okay. Now, that's pretty much it. That's your blueprint. If you want to change the photo, no problem. That's why we created Smart Objects. The way you do it is to double click on any smart object, which opens the original source image. Okay? Now you have the photograph and you have this white shape that essentially is used as a backdrop for our text. So you click on the photo, and I'm going to open up. If you have a version CC or later, you can go to Place Embedded. If not, you just open up. You go to Open and open up the image. So you go to Place Embedded. I'm going to pick a different photo. I'll pick, say, this one. Okay. Hit Place. Again, I'm going to go to the corner, Alt or Option plus Shift. Drag it in or out. In this case, I'm going to drag it out. Press Enter or Return. Now, I don't want the white rectangle down here because I'd rather put it here. This area is the emptiest. So I'm going to press Shift and drag it all the way to the corner. Pressing Shift kept it horizontal as I moved it. So I know it's going to hug the bottom of the document. Now I'm going to close the tab, click Yes to save the changes, and there you go. Now, to move the text, I'll click on the top text, click on the bottom text, and again press Shift and drag it over. And there you go. It's that simple. That was a pretty easy tutorial, by the way. But I made, it gives you pretty much what you want. And as I said, I kind of streamlined it more than the others. Again, I think this was the first Blueprint tutorial I did that used smart objects, which helps a lot. I mean, if you want to, for example, if you want to make this a little darker, well, okay, I'm going to open up the levels window. You can kind of change the, so if you want to like make, say, the blue a little darker, you can take the midtone, the input midtones, and drag it down. You see how it's making it a little darker? And I'll drag the whites up a little bit. So it kind of punches it up a little bit so you can see the before and after. I kind of like the darker version, this version better than the earlier one. But it's personal taste. Let's see. It says Anastasia K. Hello from Greece. Thank you so much, Marty, for everything you have learned from the best Photoshop tutorials in YouTube by far. Thank you. Thanks very much. There's a lot of amazing instructors out there, and each of us has our own way of teaching, and some people like certain instructors more for different reasons, and some people like mine. So, but you can learn from everybody. No super chat on YouTube mobile? I don't think so. By the way, okay, so super chat. It's so basically, if you want to ask me a question and want to make sure I get it, there's a thing that YouTube put in called super chat. At the bottom of the live chat panel, there's a smiley face and a dollar sign. Okay, so you pick a dollar amount and you type in your question, and it'll hold that question up for a certain amount of time, depending on how much you put in for super chat. So, but I don't think anybody used it yet. Muhabar Raman Muna says, what is RGB color mode in Photoshop? RGB stands for red, green, blue. It used to be for a cathode ray tube monitor. Old color TVs had red, green, and blue color tubes. And RGB is basically the color mode used for when you're seeing something off of a monitor. That's the color mode that's designated for that. If you go into image mode, you'll see RGB color is checked. Now, CMYK color, that refers to an old print, like magazine, anything in print, posters. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. K is black. Those are the four process colors that commercial printers used to use whenever they printed anything. They printed it. They printed the cyan color first, magenta, yellow, and black, and they registered those four colors on top of each other, and it created the images that you see. Once they screened, they had to screen everything. In Photoshop, anything off of a monitor is pixels per inch. Well, in print, it's dots per inch. So say newspapers have 72 dots per inch, but high-quality magazines would have 300 or 150 to 300 dots per inch. The more dots per inch, the sharper the image is going to be. Just like on the screen, the more pixels per inch, the sharper the image is going to be. So to answer your question, RGB color is the color mode that's used for anything that you see off your screen. Now, RGB color is brighter than CMYK color. So if you want to see, if you're going to print something, say you're going to print an image on a T-shirt, and you want to see what the representation of that color will be once it's printed on a T-shirt, you click CMYK color, and that will dull the color to a certain extent. That'll give you a more accurate interpretation of the color on the T-shirt, as opposed to RGB, which is just much more intense and brighter. Just FYI, it says RGB color mode, CMYK color mode, lab color mode, grayscale, but yeah. I mean, duotone mode. The duotone mode is two colors, duo colors, tritone, three colors, you can do I did a whole tutorial on these color modes, so you might want to check that out. It's amazing what you can do in Photoshop. By the way, speaking of print, CMYK and RGB, if you ever want to print a poster or something, a high quality image, and you want the colors to be as bright and faithful as possible, the best method is to use what they call Giclée printing. I believe it's French, and it's spelled Giclee. It's pronounced Giclée, I believe. It's the highest quality print you could get. It's the dots are so small you can't see them by the naked eye. And the inks that they use are archival. They're archival, which means that they won't change. The colors won't change, basically, as long as you print it on acid-free paper. Okay, and it won't yellow. And they use, I believe, at least six separate toners to use it. I mean, I did some posters, and as a matter of fact, no, it's on the other. And I had some posters. I did some Bauhaus posters, and I had them printed. A really great company. I'll put the link of the company that I used to have it printed. I'll give them a shout out. It's not expensive, by the way. Giclée printing is not expensive, and you can have it printed on a variety of acid-free papers, thick watercolor papers that just look just like watercolor. If the image is watercolor, and the colors were almost RGB in intensity as opposed to CMYK. So I'll put that link down. Tom Shaw says, I wish you taught Illustrator. Yeah, I used to use Illustrator, but as I mentioned in my last live stream, I haven't used Illustrator since I left NBC, and even longer, actually. I pretty much forgot. I forgot everything about Illustrator. As the adage say, if you don't use it, you lose it. And in my case, that's true. I didn't use Illustrator, and frankly, I just forgot everything. Okay, Opa.Tachwing, excuse me, I'm mispronouncing your name, says, what are LUTs? Okay, so for example, LUTs are, if you go to, by the way, if you ever want to save your Photoshop stage that you're in, you go to History, New Snapshot, and just press OK. And what that does is, no matter what you do, if you move ahead and you say, I wish I went back to the step earlier, you scroll up to the History panel and click the snapshot, the respective snapshot that you want to go back to, and that's how it's almost like a camera shot, but it goes back like a time machine almost. Okay, so if I open up my original photo, and I want, LUT, so if you go to the adjustment layer icon and click color lookup. Now color lookup, I think it was in CS5 or CS6 version, I'm not sure, but it's a great filter. These are 3D LUT files, okay? I believe LUT stands for light. You know what? I don't remember. But it's sort of like if it's a photography terminology. So if you click on that, all of these are basically will change the look. So for two-strip look, that's that. If I click the down arrow, it'll basically scroll through all of the LUT filters. Each one represents a photographic lab effect or cinematic lab effect. And you can create amazing effects just from the LUT, the 3D LUT. Like this one is called Moonlight, and it kind of looks like, you know, like evening, which I've applied in a few of my tutorials. So that's 3D LUT right there. Ian Shim says, I've watched a lot of your tutorials, but no one is better than you, Marty. Be strong and teach us more. Well, thanks. I mean, I have done over 500 tutorials. So if you want to go to my channel and click on the little field to the right of the magnifying glass, type in the subject, more than likely a few tutorials will pop up on the subject that you're interested in. Oh, okay, so LUT is lookup table. Thank you, 30126 Flyboy. Thanks a lot. Lookup table. Jordan Midaw says, love your tutorials. I've learned a lot from your videos in the past couple of years. That's great. I'm glad. Let do your photo. Dakpa Tibetan asks, sir, what do you mean by convert smart object? So basically smart objects, by converting an image into a smart object, it allows you to modify the image non-destructively, meaning you can add filters to it and make changes to it that are totally reversible. So that's the advantage of smart objects. It says, Marcin Smaktala says, I love you PS tutorials. I really learned a lot from you. Keep doing great job and thank you. Thank you, Marcin. Yeah, so basically, I did do one. Speaking of tones and filters, so if you click on, for example, okay, so look at the sky in this photograph. It's pretty washed out. If you want to make this into a black and white photo, image, and enhance the sky, you can create some really amazing effects. I did a tutorial showing how to convert a color photo to black and white and how to customize that black and white image. So if you go into adjustment layer and black and white, okay, let me remove color lookup. What you can do basically is by clicking on, you see this, there's a little hand with an arrow. Now if I click on that and I hover my cursor over this darker area of the cloud, I don't know if you can really see this, and I click on it and drag. See what it's doing? It's actually it's picking up the color of the photograph, and all the color in that photograph is basically making it darker. Since I know these leaves have a lot of green in them, right? So I could either click on this again, and if I want to brighten up the leaves, I click on it, all right, and to the right, and I'll brighten up the leaves. And the reason I know they're brightening is because I'm moving it to the right. If you move it to the right, it lightens. If you move it to the left, or right. Or you go to the green slider and you slide it to the right or the left. That'll darken all the greens. Now the grass is green as well. See the grass? See how it's darkening and lightening? Because everything green in the photograph is being lightened when I move it to the right or darkened when I move it to the left. Cyan, again, look at the clouds. See how the clouds darken? Because I know there's cyan in the sky, and I know there's blue in the sky. So you could really create some amazing contrasts as black and white images from color images, if that makes sense. It's a great filter, actually. A lot of people don't use it. Oh, you can also do some other things too, by the way. Let me go back. By clicking this icon, it brings it back to its original state. You can tint it too. Okay, so you can pick any color. Like if I want to tint it, say a blue, it almost looks like a duotone by tinting it. So you get some really, really cool stuff. US Vigoro 30. Hello, Marty. First time viewer, but have been subscribed to your channel for some time now. Great work you do. Thank you very much. Thank you. Kevin Rissiu says, do you have a tutorial for the tools? Well, I mean, there are some tools that I dedicate entire tutorials for. Those tutorials are generally for new tools that were introduced in new versions of Photoshop. So if a new version of 3D comes out, say in version CS6 from CS5, they changed over the interface, I would do a tutorial on using the 3D. Or if a version of, if there's vanishing point, that's like it became a new feature, then I would teach that. Now there are a few others, like for example the pen tool, how to create work paths using the pen tool. That deserves an entire tutorial because the pen tool is a very tricky tool to use. It's not difficult at all, but you just need to know how to use it to get exactly the curves you want. And I dedicated a tutorial specifically on how to draw paths with the pen tool. So, but there's hundreds and hundreds of tools in Photoshop, and you could find that on other tutorials, on other websites. There are other websites like lynda.com that they go over each tool, for example, so if you really want to learn that way, you could go to their website, for example, and learn how to do it. But I'm more kind of project oriented when I do my tutorials. Upic says, can you please show how to customize added flare, how to add a lens flare? I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. So, yeah, okay. Let me trash that. So, there's a number, you could add a lens flare right on top of this, but what I'd like to do is to create a new layer. I'm going to add black to that layer, so I'm going to press D to default my foreground and background colors. I'm going to fill my empty layer with black by pressing Alt or Option plus Delete. which fills it with the foreground color. I'm going to change the blend mode to screen. Where are you? Here you are. And I'm going to go to Filter, Render, and Lens Flare. Okay. So I'm going to move it to an area, say any area really. I'll add it over here. Now there's 4 different types of lens flares. There's the 50 to 300 millimeter zoom, the 35 millimeter prime, the 105 millimeter prime, and the movie prime. So I'm going to use this one. I'm going to use the top one. The brightness, I'll leave it 100%, and I'm going to click OK. You see what it did? It kind of added a flare to it, almost like maybe the sun is behind the leaves, you know? And it's creating a lens flare. You see the lens flares. So if I make it normal, you can see the lens flare, how it is. But by making it screen, it kind of punches through. It punches through the through itself, through the black, and it ends up on the image. Now I could move. The reason I did this as a separate layer is I could move the screen. I could move the lens flare. So say I want to move it right here. There's a hole here. Okay, I'll put it right there. Now, to make sure. Now, if you notice, you see, we're getting sort of like an empty area here. To make sure that it's going to cover the entire image, I'm going to open my transform tool, Control or Command T, and I'm basically going to. This little thing here is called a reference point. I'm going to drag the reference point to the center of the brightest part of the flare, and then I'm going to go to a corner. And when I see a diagonal double arrow, I'm going to press Alt or Option plus Shift, and I'm going to drag it out to just outside the document. Press Enter or Return, and now the lens flare is completely, you're not going to cut anything off. So that's how you use a lens flare. This is Shane Potter says, I wish you would cast more often. Well, thanks. That's very nice of you. I mean, this is my third. The first, I did one, I guess, what was it, like 6 weeks ago or something like that? And then I waited, well, maybe 5 weeks ago. Then I waited a week or two, and then I waited another couple of weeks. So I guess I'm doing them every couple of weeks. I might do one in 2 or 3 weeks. I don't want to overdo it. John Marie Moraney says, what is the best way to convert to black and white so it will print without a greenish tint? Well, it shouldn't print with a greenish tint. I mean, if you're converting an image to black and white and you're printing it using just the black ink, there's no greenish tint. So I'm not really following. I don't understand. How are you, John? How are you getting a greenish tint when you print? What were you printing onto? UPIC says, so now you can change the flare colors. Yeah, you can change the flare colors. You go into Adjustment Layer. Okay. Go into Hue Saturation, for example, or Color Balance. I mean, let's just do Hue Saturation. Now, adjustment layers will affect all the layers under it, except if you make the adjustment layer into a clipping mask. To make with a clipping mask will clip or restrict itself to just the one layer below it, in this case the lens flare. To do that, you can either click the clipping mask icon right here, and you see it moves, the slides over, and you see a little arrow here, or you press Control-Alt-G on Windows or Command-Option-G on a Mac. And you see this is what happens. So now I can go to say the hue, and look at the lens flare. See how it's changing color as I slide it? You could also click colorize and change the color that way. So now everything about the flare will be basically monochrome, but the color that you're choosing. That's basically one way of colorizing a lens flare. Another way would be to call up color balance, and you got midtones, shadows, and highlights. I'm going to clip it to the lens flare, and I'm going to change the midtones. You see how the midtones are changing? This is all the lens flare basically. So you can get some pretty cool effects. That's how basically you change the color. Okay, that was my cell phone. Excuse me. So yeah, so I guess that's about it. We've been on now for a little over an hour, and I really enjoyed, as always, I really enjoyed chatting with you and showing you some stuff, spending time with each other. And I'll let you know when I'm going to do the next live stream. And just in the meantime, be well, have fun. Life is short. Enjoy yourself. And I'll see you then, okay? Take care.